get you to press the record button.
Yep.
So what we're going to do is, if you've got any questions at all, pop them uh, in the chat or in the questions thread, that kind of thing, and we'll try and give you answers sort of as we go through. The first thing that we wanted to do was just have a bit of a skim over the rules update, and then we'll pause there and take questions on any of the rules update, and how does that change my character, and all of those sort of necessary questions. After which we'll sort of move on to the logistics type stuff, and that kind of thing, because I know that some people will just be interested in the rules bit, and other people will want to listen to everything. So that's the sort of plan of attack. Cool. So the new rules, will pop a link again to the one pager on the chat, so that everyone's got access to that. We've done. Oh, there we go. I think Andy might be sharing it as well, so we can have a you can have a look on screen if you want to read through. We won't sort of go through everything line by line, because it's there for you to read, but we'll go through the bits that we think are really going to affect most people. And the first one is that we're adding in two states between being perfectly well and starting your death count, or being dead. And those states are wounded and unconscious. So, Andy, I don't know if you wanted to have a little go through wounded and unconscious states for us.
Yep. Certainly. So, we want dramatic roleplay and those heroic self-sacrifices and all those awesome little moments that you see in post-apocalyptic movies and action films and whatnot. So, whilst when in previously death count you could still chat and whatnot, say anything. It was very nebulous and wasn't really well defined about what you could and couldn't do when you were on your death count. So we've introduced wounded and unconscious to try and give a bit more definition and help people understand what they are allowed to do when in those life or death situations. So, if you've got any HP left, you are fine. Carry on, play as normal. When you hit 0 HP, you become wounded. From then on, you are only allowed to move at a slow walking pace. And if you were to use any skills, abilities, make an attack, defend yourself, or are hit by a stray shot, this includes anything that requires a call, you immediately start your death count. This will allow you to do to move very slowly out of the way in that method. If you imagine that point of in video games where the screen has gone completely grayscale, you're on your last legs, your characters basically holding themselves together as they're limping away from danger. That's the sort of effect we're going for. But it does still allow you to move and to talk and let people know what's going on. If you're hit with a fatal, you ignore the wounded state and you go immediately to your death count. Unconscious, we had people trying to do subdue damage at the first event, and we realised that we hadn't actually codified subdual and unconsciousness in the rules. So we've now added that. It works pretty much the same as most systems in the country. When you are unconscious, you fall to the floor or slump in a way that is safe for you and those around you, and you cannot communicate or use any skills or abilities, and it lasts for 30 seconds. You also become unconscious when you start your death count. So if you go from go hit by a fatal and go straight to your death count, or you go from wounded to death count, you are unconscious during that time. Um, if you are during the 30 seconds that you are unconscious, or if you are treated with a shot of adrenaline, returns to a wounded state, or returns to 1 health point or more in any fashion, you immediately regain consciousness. Okay.
Nice. Yeah, so the TLDR is we've added in wounded and unconscious. You get to 0, all you can do is walk slowly. If anything else happens, that's when you start your death count and become unconscious. So you take another hit, you try and use a skill, you parry, you block, anything, that's when you become unconscious. So at 0, you're still able to walk around and talk slowly. If you attack, that's it. You're on your death count. We got a section after that on crafting and sort of what you can do with armor and upgrades. It's if you're going to be using these, it's worth having a look through. But it just sort of clarifies, sort of what was happening at the first event. We've changed the duration to 6 uses instead of an hour for upgrades. So 6 uses instead of an hour. And we've just clarified that you can put together kits that you can then put on people's stuff later. And there's some rules around all of that. If you're going to be making those kits, it's worth reading through in detail. If you're not engaging with it, then, well, fair enough. And just on the making stuff point, if you're going to be making explosives, we've got a supply of the fizz reps that call Boom. And we've got a very, very small supply, like 1 or 2 of coloured grenades. So if you're going to be creating loads that require fizz reps, it's much more sensible to think about bringing your own fizz reps, just to avoid, coming and asking a ref one and us saying, actually, we've got none left because, people have been making loads. We've only got so many in the supply. And likewise, if you're going to be using any of the explosives that do coloured smoke, which I think is going to be really likely this event, you'll need to bring your own full stop because, as I say, we've got 1 or 2. So really don't rely on that. I've chatted to the warden on site. He's got all of the colours in stock in the shop. And at any point, you can just walk up to the shop and buy your grenade. So, you've crafted it and then, you need the actual smoke. So you can just walk up to the shop and grab that. And obviously, if that, if there's a big fight happening or whatever, just stick your finger in the air, walk up and get it and come back down. We can't realistically bring stuff to you, but we think this is hopefully the best middle ground. So yeah, Warden's got all sorts of coloured smoke. If you've not been in that shop before, it's brilliant. It also does cold drinks. They've got some hot snacks, ice creams, that kind of stuff, and all sorts of airsoft stuff. When you go into the Monster Hut and turn right, you go up the stairs and it's the first door there up the stairs. So you can always go into that shop to buy food, drink, snacks, explosives, whatever you want. And talk to the guy about Warhammer. He's a really decent guy, so we'd love to support him. Cool. We've also clarified the suppressing fire, which was a little bit powerful at the last one, and we want to give everyone an opportunity to be able to be the person at the front. And the time duration meant that frequently that was only one person, which is awesome if you're that person. But we want to be able to get everyone having that chance to have the hero moment and probably get killed. So suppressing fire now lasts for 30 seconds. Everyone within 10 meters of the front of the user, including friends, takes 1 point of damage every 3 seconds they're in the line of fire. Now, we recognise that that's a significant downgrade. And of course, if that means that a skill that you've got is now something that you don't want to use, just change your skills. That really isn't a problem. You don't have to ask permission. As with everything, first year, you just don't need to ask permission. If it's not fun, change it, and that goes for all of the changes that we've made here as well. On the other hand, we're adding in an item. It's going to be a blueprint that you'll be able to find in the game. It is going to be expensive to make. So you're going to have to consider carefully whether it is worth the resource cost. But we're making, or you can make, a stealth shiv. And what that can do is if you attack stealthily, quietly, unobserved from behind, it is possible that this item can affect, will affect clickers. You have to see what happens if you do the same to a bloater. That is one of the very few times that I'm going to say find out in play. So we've got some calls. Andy, do you want to do a piece on the calls?
Yep, absolutely. So, first one, we're adding in an area modifier. Because we're children at heart, we're going with the word mega instead of something sensible like mass or area. Because we feel like shouting mega fatal sounds really cool. All this means is that from anything that the call will affect anything within all targets within 3 meters of the point of origin. So I get to use a mega fatal. If someone something calls a mega fatal, everything within 3 meters of that thing takes fatal. Nice and simple. Boom. Everyone will be who played in the first event will be aware of boom. Target. It's your standard frag shrapnel grenade thing. Throw something. Throw a grenade. It explodes. Does 3 points of damage and collapse to everything within a meter of that explosion. Mega Boom was very briefly introduced at the end of the last event when someone decided to blow up a generator. It's a bigger boom with a larger explosion and a much more deadly explosion the closer you are, so everything within 1 meter takes fatal, and everything within 3 meters takes 3 points of damage and collapse. Don't be standing next to the big explosion. And just to codify it, we have said that subdue is a call in the system, indicating non-lethal blows. If you hit something or with their last hit with a subdue call, they will become unconscious. Follow the unconscious rules. Okay. We have had a quick question, a couple of quick questions before we move on.
Yeah, let's do those now.
From Holly is regarding the wounded state. Can you self-inject with adrenaline during that time, or would that be counted as one of the things you can't do?
Injecting yourself with adrenaline at that point is fine.
Yeah. It's one of those edge cases of technically you would make yourself unconscious, but then the adrenaline would kick in. So
yeah. Exactly that.
And Amy asks us who can craft a stealth shiv. It's people with the knowledge and the ability to craft things.
Each of the blueprints will have I think the majority of the blueprints that went out at the first event said inventor on them, which means that an inventor can do it, or wanderers with appropriate inventor skills. And appropriate just means if you think that your character could do it and you're a wanderer with a skill that that you think fits in. I don't care how flimsy the excuse is. The answer is yes. If you so if you are a scientist or a wanderer with scientist skills, you could do scientist blueprints. It's fundamentally, if your character could do it, you could do it. And there is absolutely wiggle room here. If your character is like laser focused on one thing and you think there's a really compelling reason why your character would be able to do this, but it's a different set of skills, have a chat with a ref, explain your thought process, and we're going to try our best to say yes. If it makes for the cool story, we care way more about the cool story than we care about your stats list. They're just a way to create the cool stories. So yeah, just if it's cool, the answer's probably going to be yes.
Cool. And just a quick check. I think that's it so far.
Cool. Well, we'll move on to skills because I imagine that this one will probably generate some questions as well. Awesome questions so far, and thank you, folks, for asking them because if you're thinking it, other folks definitely will be. So keep them coming. We've introduced the let's take it outside skill, and the purpose behind this is to keep the safe zone safe. And by safe zone, we're very clearly defining the safe zone, and we will be rebriefing this to crew and players on site as downstairs of E Block and the paved area, not the road, but the paved area that leads to the toilets outside. Because then what that means is that there's never going to be a fight inside, so your beautiful decorations will stay beautiful and stay safe, and you can always go to the toilet because that's an out of character thing. So you never need to worry about that. There's never going to be a fight that's going to stop you from going to the loo. Let's take it outside is the mechanic by which we're going to have a fight anyway. So you say, and you don't have to get the words exactly right. NPCs will always be briefed to go with the spirit of the thing. So if you say we're going outside, that's fine. You just need to get that idea across. Let's go outside. Let's take it outside. So you say that, and the NPC is compelled to follow you out of the safe zone. It's so that you can have a fight. And everyone around you will see what's happening. So if they've got their mates with them, their mates will see what's going on and see that you're being aggressive and offering them outside. And it will only work on one NPC at a time. So you can't offer out an entire group of people. But they might well follow you out because if you're starting on their mate, then there's a good chance that they're going to want to start on you afterwards as well. It only targets a single NPC, and some NPCs might be able to resist that skill. They'll call no effect. There's only going to be two or three in this game, and if you want to have a fight with them, you're going to have to find another way of doing it. That if they call no effect, it means that you can't offer them outside. However, they might call no effect and follow you outside anyway, which is just their choice. They're not compelled to. They're just deciding that they do want to go outside. So that's the let's take it outside skill. It's designed to keep the aesthetic inside, which was so good at the first event, and give you a way of interacting with people that you don't want to be in there. That's the idea. The second skill that we're adding is the Lucky Escape. And this is an out-of-character mechanic to be used as an accessibility feature rather than for any sort of mechanical benefit. Hopefully it's not too complicated, but the TLDR is if you think you should use this skill, you can use this skill. No one's going to be checking up on it. We looked at all of the feedback last time about the high com, low com thing, and we don't think we got it completely right. So what we really want is a game where you can get involved in everything that you want to get involved in, no matter what your out of character situation might be. What this skill doesn't do is give you an escape from a hopeless situation that literally no one could escape from. All this skill does is even the playing field. So if you wanted to play a combat character, but realistically, you know you've got one fight in you, and then you might have to call it quits. This is probably the ideal mechanism. Or if you know that you're not going to be able to run away because your knees aren't for running, but actually you do want to get involved in combat, and you know that you can do it safely. And you as a grown adult can make your own decisions. We want to enable that. So that's what this is for. You can't use it to escape from hopeless situations. So if you're trapped in a room and there's a bloater there that's punching the floor in the doorway, obviously you can't get out of that. No one's going to be able to escape from that. But if there's, I don't know, a clicker blocking the hallway, and you could conceivably get past that clicker if you were able to, crawl on your stomach out, but actually you're on crutches, well, then that's the ideal time to use this mechanic. So if you find your character in a situation that they could escape from, but you personally can't because of whatever restriction, and that could be physical, it could be psychological, it could be anything at all, and we aren't going to check, you put your finger in the air and you move out of danger without taking any damage. At that point, you can either choose to go back to the safe zone if that's appropriate for you, or you can rejoin the encounter from a point clearly outside of danger after 2 minutes. So that probably looks like going to the other end of the building, or going out of eye line of the fights, or going walking slowly away for a minute and walking back. However you want to do that, it's 2 minutes and clearly outside of danger. It isn't perfect, this, and we recognise that actually there might be a point where you realise it just isn't appropriate for you to be in a situation at all. So we're kind of relying on you to be the judge of that. And if you need to get yourself out, just get yourself out. If you find yourself consistently in a situation where you're using this and you feel like maybe it's being disruptive to the game, again, we ask that you just have a think about whether it's appropriate or not. We're not going to be counting. We're not going to be. This isn't something that we're going to be policing at all, because we think it's hard enough, trying to play on hard mode to begin with. So we want to make the game fair, but we don't want it to negatively impact anyone else's experience. So just be mindful of your own actions, as with everything. So yeah, we don't expect that this mechanic will be used by anyone that isn't currently playing on hard mode, but you get to define what that is. So if any aspect is challenging for you and this would be appropriate rather than a mechanical benefit, it's appropriate, and we agree with that. Okay, we know that not all disabilities are visible. We're not going to ask justification. We're not going to check up. If you think it's appropriate for you, we believe you. That's the lucky escape. We'll move on to the medical skills then. We have changed this one, and this might be the one where people decide that that they want to pick different skills or update things or whatever. And if you have a character that is in any way disadvantaged by the rules update, and it's made it worse for you, with the exception of the suppressing fire, you can just stick with the original. This is the ideal example of that. Scientists then have the option to pick either explosive use or first aid at character creation. We've also put a thing in there saying if you want, you can drop one other skill, probably a weapon, in order to take both. because we recognise that some people did do that. That's the character that they wanted to play. First aid means that with 30 seconds of appropriate role playing, you get to choose what appropriate role play is, whether that's using tools, whether that's getting your hands in there. Always ask for consent if you're getting hands on with someone. You might decide that you've got, nice little sticky plasters, whatever. However you want to role play, that is up to you. 30 seconds of appropriate role play, you can stop a person's death count so that they become conscious and wounded. In an additional 30 seconds, you heal them up to 1 health point and they are no longer wounded. They're good to go. You patched them up. If a person is just wounded, you can just do 30 seconds of role play to get them to 1 health point. If someone is on 1 or more health points, it doesn't do anything other than potentially irritate them. And you don't need to use any resources in order to use first aid. If you want to phys rep it with cool tools or plasters or bandages or whatever, amazing, love that. If you're using fake blood, always ask people before you put it on them, that kind of thing. Some people really enjoy doing, make up bruises. Again, ask before you do, but be creative about how you want to do it because it's cool. Adrenaline there. We're just clarifying that adrenaline will still restore a dying character to 1 health point instantly, bypassing the wounded state. So adrenaline, it's still really, really important to have bags of adrenaline, even if you're using this first aid skill, because, 60 seconds on the front line is going to get everyone killed. Inventors have had their traps skill clarified. So inventors can make and diffuse traps. Some wanderers were able to do this as part of their character without taking the skill. That's fine. You can still keep that skill. So the fact that we've added it in doesn't mean we're retconning that skill away from you. If your character had the ability to trap last time, it's fine. And we've put an example of the trap in the crafting guide. In the inventor portion. We'll take questions on the skills there, probably, because I think there might be some questions.
Okay, so we've had a question about the safe zone.
Yeah.
From Griff. It's just confirming the first floor isn't part of the safe zone at this event. Will it be part of the available rooms for people to sleep in? So Charlie can correct me on this one, but I believe the way that we're saying is that you have cleared the first floor, so you can use it as part of your setup, but it is not in any way secure permanently. So if a clicker were to sneak in at 3 a.m. to go to and sneak up the stairs or whatever, that actually happens, and it is a combat zone. It is just the ground floor and the hard-standing pathing to the portaloos.
Yeah, absolutely right. With just the one caveat that if you're upstairs and you need to go for a wee, you can just put your finger in the air and go downstairs and not have to deal with clickers walking up the stairs. Because that's an out of character thing. You'd go out the window or something, or do it in a can. I don't know. I'm not really sure why you'd go out the window, but anyway, yeah. So if you're upstairs, you can put your finger in the air for out of character reasons to get out of the way.
Upstairs of E block will be treated like F block. You are free to set up in. You're free to do whatever you like. In the playable zones, but the only safe portion is downstairs E block.
Yeah, I mean, just to add to that, if you want to set up stuff in F block, that's absolutely fine. There is going to be a permanent keeper base in the vicinity of G block. If you're insane enough to try and sneak in there and set up a little, Ghost Moth enclave in the keeper base, you absolutely can do that. I'll start writing your best death card now, to be honest. But you absolutely could do that. All of the permanent areas are fair game.
How are traps going to be represented?
Traps will be represented by, there will be a phys rep with either a Lammy or a referee on it. And if you are likely to be making traps, Gnosis have put together a lot of our phys reps. What is it, Priestess Pieces? What's Ant's one? They're really good as well. They've got some amazing traps. There's some really good makers out there. If it's something that can, if someone kicked it or walked over it, it wouldn't damage it or them. You could use that. You couldn't use a mirror because that would be really dangerous. But you could use, I don't know, a music box, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Those are your choices.
Just check the other bit.
Oh, and just on the traps, if you make a trap and you set it, it won't work until you tell a referee, because otherwise the monsters won't know that it's there, and they won't know to react to it. So that is a sort of half in, half out of character bit. But yeah, your trap starts working once the referees know that it's been placed.
Okay, I think that's everything.
Sweet. All right, so we just go on to the clarifications then. Andy, do you want to do the repairing armor, distraction, that kind of bit?
Yep, sure.
Oh, and the clickers and bloaters as well.
Yeah. So, just a few questions, minor things that cropped up over the first event, like how is repairing armor done? So, an inventor can repair armor with appropriate roleplay, much like first aid works for your physical self. So it's literally just standing there, either with stapling armor back together, taking it off, using wire to hold pieces together, reams of duct tape, that sort of thing. That will repair armor for an appropriate amount of time, like 30 seconds or so, as a rule of thumb, to get the armor repaired. It feels that's the way we're going to run it. However, if the armor or weapon has been destroyed by the calls rend or shatter, then you will need the crafted items armor repair kit or weapon repair kit to put those back together. That's it. Nice and straightforward. The distraction items. We loved you using the bricks and other bits and pieces to lob around and try and distract the creatures and monsters. However, we have come to the decision that running around and chasing the one brick to keep the distraction going was a little bit unbalancing, and after testing of literally throwing a brick I had around in my backyard, we, after some repeated use, a item may break. So all that will happen is a ref will probably come up to it, pick it up, pocket it, and just say the word shatter or something along those lines, just to let you know the item's been broken. So maybe finding a source for more items to create distractions will be needed. And clickers and bloaters. So just so you can temper your expectations on how they're going to act going forward, clickers and bloaters will move aggressively towards noise. So if they encounter a person in the way or around the source of a noise, they will attack.
I'm listening to a thing about a lark. Go on.
Who's that? Can you mute, please? Thank you. The So you've got to make an effort to move out of the way of these echolocating things. They are blind, but let's say that if you're within like 6 inches of them, they're probably going to notice you. Staying completely still will not keep you safe. You are directly in their path. And also, constant noise that that attracts their attention will just make them angrier, and they are more likely to do rampages and just start swinging at random, and you know, not be less investigative of what was that noise, and more they're over there, charge, smash. Again, as an accessibility feature for the more lower com end of high com encounters, you can use the lucky escape skill to avoid taking damage in this way as accessibility feature. But this won't work again if you're backed into a corner or in a tight space with no valid escape path. So if you can reasonably dive for cover or slip out of the way of a rampaging thing, but you have an OC issue that will prevent you from doing this, you can use your lucky escape. Okay, just having a quick check of the chat channel. Players only have one brain cell and all it knows is brick. Yes, but most of the 23rd aren't here. And if anyone, only a few people get that reference. Questions? No, answer anything else. Right, what would you like to talk about, Charlie?
Cool. Just to say that I've had a couple of PMs asking about sources of noise, all of which are really, really sensible questions. So just to clarify, if, I don't know, again, going with the music box thing, if you set up a music box one end of the courtyard in E Block, there is a chance that clickers will hear it. They're quite quiet, so it's not 100%. But, if it's producing a noise, it is producing a noise. Whether human noise is more appealing than just noise, that's something that would be a really interesting sort of study and worth looking at if you're interested in that in game. Things like throwing bouncy balls or anything like that, we're saying no to, because number one, I don't want people getting bouncy balls in the eye. And number two, I don't want a huge amount of stuff on the floor that people could trip over. The sort of squashy LARP safe stuff is one thing. I don't want a lot of stuff that requires picking up at the end for quite a number of reasons. So thrown items, throwing weapons from other systems are absolutely fine. But yeah, again, there's a chance that anything that you're chucking around will break if you're continually throwing it. And throwing items that aren't LARP safe throwables is a no, but setting up sources of noise that are noisy is a valid choice. Hopefully that makes sense. Cool. As you're typing your questions in response to that, we'll just move on to underlining the point that on this event, everyone can do high com, even if you'd count yourself as a low com, if you feel that you want to be able to go into that high combat situation and the lucky escape rule makes it possible for you to do that. Cool. Get involved. It's entirely up to you, with the understanding that high combat situations are can be fast paced, can be challenging, and if you feel like that isn't going to be a fun place for you, then to not put yourself in that situation. But yeah, just to clarify that every encounter could be high combat. What there is going to be is there's going to be a selection of mission briefing dossiers available to you. All of those briefing dossiers will basically tell you how you ought to approach the mission. And you'll be able to gauge from that very, very easily whether it's going to be a high com or a low com. So some of them will say maximum of 5 people. You mustn't get caught. You must only sneak. We fully intend for that to be a low com mission. But if someone kicks off and starts a fight, well, then someone kicks off and starts a fight. On missions that are obviously low com and say we're going to be sneaking, the person that instigates that fight will be the target of a lot of firepower, and other people who haven't deliberately broken those parameters will be, to the best abilities of heightened state of alert crew, ignored. So if you're sort of breaking the rules, as it were, you're putting yourself in harm's way, and we'll really try not to spill that over to other people unless other people also get involved. So again, feel free to ask questions about that if you want clarification. And again, if you want to change any of your character skills, go ahead. We're aware that changing stuff from 1 hour to 6 instances is a big change. And it is universally bad if you're, well, almost universally bad if you're playing. But our incredibly hardworking crew suggested that maybe let's do lots of burpees LARP wasn't the best fun for them, and we absolutely respect that. So we're trying to get that good balance of not physically exhausting our crew and making their encounters just as much fun, so that then they can continue doing all of that good work 24 hours.
Yeah. Just to add to that is those for weapons, those 6 uses are of the user's choice, and it's not 6 uses within an hour. It's 6 uses. So you could put it on at the beginning of the event, and it will not run out. If you don't use it at all during the event, those 6 uses will still be there next event. That's only for weapons. For your armor, if you put a rend anti-rend kit on your armor, then the first 6 rends it takes, it will ignore. It's an automatic use. However, if you've been hit by 6 rends over the course of a weekend, or within very quickly, then you might want to consider what's going wrong. Anyway.
Yep. Yeah, no, good clarification. So those will change, sort of whether you like it or not. All of the other skills, if you've sort of got a skill that's been changed, very much like the Wanderers and Traps, just go with what you had last time. Mm-hmm. Fill in the form if you want to, if you're changing anything. If you aren't changing anything from event 1, and we've got your old form, you don't need to fill in the form again. I'll just draw people's attention to referees. So we've got plenty of referees in the player area. Andy obviously is a referee. Everyone in the Nightingales is a referee, and Chef Ref Juliet is a referee. Ellie is Chef Ref. So you can go to any of those people who are, they're in character, but you can go to them for any sort of ref question, and you can sort of ask them to come out on missions with you. Juliet is a really, really good choice to take out on missions. Ellie, so she'll be able to sort of talk you through stuff in an in-character way and sort of give you ideas and stuff. when the Nightingales perhaps are super busy, or if Andy's come up to the ref hut, because we've got to plan a fourth different thing to do on Sunday. So definitely encourage you to go and talk to Ellie, aka Chef Ref Juliet. Cool. Time in, time out, when and so on. Everyone can get on site from 12 on Friday the 5th. If you're there earlier, the gates won't be open. The industrial estate itself might be, but don't get there before 12. And then you can get all of your stuff set up. If you know where you're going, come and sign in. We'll have a tick sheet at the Monster Hut, so you can tick to sign yourself in and say that you're there. We're going to try and get character packs for you to pick up when you sign in, but I'm not going to guarantee that in case we haven't got enough bodies there yet. And then you can go and get yourself set up in E Block. That's absolutely fine. Camping is exactly the same as before. You can have an IC tent in the IC area. You can have an OC tent in the OC area. No NPCs or monsters will come into in-character tents unless they're invited in specifically, sort of like a vampire. And certainly no monsters or NPCs are going to go anywhere near your out-of-character tents. So if you set up a beautiful festival tent in the front courtyard, which you'd be completely welcome to do, and had it beautifully decorated on the inside with boxes and pillow forts and all of that kind of stuff, that's great. And then if you would like to invite NPCs in, you can, but they're not going to come into your tent and smash it up. That's the key thing. Ideally, we don't want you to put it on the road bit, because that's there is a good chance that aggressive action will take place on that road bit. Aim to put it in the safe zone area, or as close as possible. But yeah, you can absolutely put in-character tents in character area, or you can put out-of-character tents in the out-of-character area. We're going to have a quiet room again, and we'll have that labelled. Time in is going to be from 8 o'clock on Friday. Time out will be, it's probably going to be about 12:30 on the Sunday, but it could be any point between 12 and 1, depending on the choices that you make. There is no timeout, just as a reminder, in between that. Had really good feedback about people staying in character in character areas. And there were just a couple of comments about sort of herd out of character things. It's such a confined space indoors that sound really travels. So just to remember that, if you're going to bed and dropping out of character because you're just going to sleep, don't chat about the election at full volume in the in-character area. Just be respectful of the fact that people can hear even if you're whispering, that kind of stuff. And we as referees will absolutely do our best to keep any sort of referee conversations out of earshot. If we need to have those conversations, we'll try and take them as far away as we can, to make sure that we're not interrupting your game. And just to say, there is a shop on site, and if for any reason you need to come and use the shop, or that you need to use the mirrors to put contact lenses in and wash your hands, you can use the toilets in the crew area, because they are plumbed toilets with running water. It really isn't safe. Like, it's so unsafe to drink that water. What happened in Cornwall, like that, but worse. Like, please don't drink the water out of the taps in the crew hut. It's really bad for you. But you can use, if it, as an accessibility thing, you need to use the loos in the crew hut, you absolutely can. Just be aware that there is constant crew conversation going on in there. So, put your fingers in your ear, put your loops in, whatever. But you're still welcome to use those loos. We're having the same loo setup again. So for those that weren't there, we've got decent portaloos. We couldn't remember if there were lights in the portaloos or not. So if someone wants to just say in the chat if they had lights or not, and if lights would be a helpful thing for us to add, pop that in the chat, because we can look at putting some lights in the loos if they need it. And yeah, again, you can always put your finger in the air to go and use the shop on site if you need some fizzy pop or a hot drink or whatever, or an ice cream. Someone asked a really sensible question about do you get caps in between events? And the answer is no, but you only get stuff in between events if you filled in a downtime, and you are just as likely to get bad stuff as you are to get good stuff for doing a downtime. And the more aspirational your downtime is, the more likely you are to come away with real lasting harm. If your downtime is, I want to go and find a single cap, you probably manage it with cuts and bruises. But yeah, that's all on the downtime sheets. We have now completed all of the downtimes. If anyone is truly heartbroken and absolutely forgot, drop me a PM. I'll see what I can do. However, if working on non-mods is super, super fun for you, and you've made some beautiful mods that just desperately need to be part of your character kit, what we'll do is when we've got the sign-up sheets out, we will also put a stack of med cards by the sign-in sheets when you come and say that you're on site. If you would like to add 3 mods to your character pack, you may take a med card. It's entirely up to you. So you can have 3 mods, or the equivalent 3 non-mods. Not equivalent, just 3 non-mods in return for a med card, which that seems reasonably fair to us. We've added in some new med cards. Most of them are med cards that can be cured with roleplay. If you're a medic, you'll automatically know that. We're going to put some the updated sheets out, so you'll automatically know to diagnose it. We've updated the treatment sheet, so you can print off a new copy, or the Nightingales will have a couple that'll be in the Nightingales room in the same place. There are a couple that require items as well, but we think that we listen to your feedback that there need to be that it would be cool for there to be more ways to deal with injuries. So we found some more ways to harm you. Enjoy. On the subject of lasting harm, we've put in a sorry or how I died channel. Obviously, don't use your phones in character areas, but if you die and you would like to tell us all about it, we all want to hear about it, because maybe something really cool happened and no one was around to see it. And maybe it was just you and a couple of crew, or whatever. We want to know about that stuff. So put your thoughts and feelings on the How I Died channel, or if someone died amazingly and you were the only one that saw it, put it on the channel. It's you can't get a best death card unless we know that you died in an amazing way. So let us know about that. Obviously, don't use your phone in character areas. Make sure that you're doing that in out of character areas. And please don't go to the loo to be texting while you're on the loo. At the very least, use some hand sanitizer. Which brings us on to the subject of what should we bring. Bring water, 2 litres minimum each. The weather forecast's all over the show. I don't know if anyone fancies taking over the role of being head of weather forecasting and putting up daily links or whatever. You're very welcome to do that. But it's all over the place. It might be really hot. It might rain. There might be a thunderstorm. So please pack for all eventualities. Bring spare kits. Bring at least 2 litres of water. You might well want more. The guy in the shop has some water, but certainly not enough for everyone on site, not even close. So please don't think that that's an option. He's got a couple of bottles. Bring warm kit, bring waterproofs. It's the apocalypse. You can absolutely have found pristine, brand new waterproofs in the local millets. I'm happy for the local millets to be raided entirely of all its useful supplies, but still full to the brim of every single waterproof cagoule and poncho that you could ever need. So bring those. Bring welly boots. Bring cheerfully decorated welly boots. Love that. And in terms of bedding, just remember that you can absolutely use the cells to sleep in. Daniel has very, very helpfully put together a little Google document. This isn't us that are doing it, and I think he's going to pop it in the chat. Basically, if you want a room, it's so that everyone gets the room that they need, and it's the sheet's brilliant. It sort of takes people's accessibility needs into account and that kind of stuff. So if you want a room, it'd be really cool to fill in that form. And yeah, if you need a quiet space, I recommend not sleeping in the downstairs cells. It's very noisy. They're very claustrophobic. I wouldn't be sleeping in there. I would find that really challenging. So they're extremely noisy. Bring your loops. Bring your earplugs. Or maybe consider setting up an in character or out of character tent outside. I think. Oh, and just the other thing in terms of what to bring your own personal knowledge, or if there's something in the game that has caught your attention and you think your character might be an expert on it, go and get knowledge about it. You can absolutely use any knowledge that you have in the game, and if you're an expert and we're not, we will probably defer to your expertise. Our medical team are medical professionals, so that they are going to be using real life medical science, and your thoughts on that are absolutely valid. So if you bring textbooks, they are a really good idea. If you think that you want to be researching something, textbooks are a great choice as a prop to bring along, because then you can point to it when you say to the ref, I'm going to make this, or I think this would work, or I think I should be able to do this. And you point to it in a textbook and we go, yeah, you can totally do that. So bring your own personal knowledge and all of that kind of stuff. Bring a hat. Probably bring a hat as well. Fans happen in the apocalypse. I don't care if batteries are a scarce resource. Little fans totally work. Cool. Andy, anything that we've missed there?
Nothing off the top of my head.
Cool. Let's see if there's any questions. Or if anyone's got any questions and wants to unmute and go ahead and ask that, that's cool too.
Dan, just checking there's no chance of the published crafting documents changing before the event. Never say never. It's very unlikely with less than 10 days to go, but never say never.
Yep.
Anthony, can players upgrade traps with grenades, smokes, and alarm clocks, etc.? That sounds like a research project. See what you can come up with.
That sounds like the sort of research project that we would be very, very keen for people to explore.
Mm-hmm. No, you do not need to be any specific class to bring or wear a respirator. And speaking of respirators, thank you very much, Tom, for bringing this up. You do not need to wear a respirator at all times when fighting infected or bloaters or whatnot. For those that have seen the Last of Us TV series or played the games, you'll know they only really put the respirators or masks on in very specific circumstances. Usually when they spotted a cloud of spores, and even then they still had time to put the mask on. It wasn't an instant oh dear, I'm thing. So you have a little bit of time. So if you find it uncomfortable to wear a respirator in the middle of a fight, you probably don't need to. If you think if your character would wear the respirator and the mask, then you can. That's up to you. You might be a bit paranoid, but we're not going to actively seek out and punish people for not wearing it, wearing their masks or whatever, unless something catastrophic goes on. It is still indeed only standard darts, mega darts. The brand new N series, which has just come out, which has got like a little a dart with a smaller head and a little tail, is not part of the system. Mostly because one, they only really work with the brand new blasters, so there's no. It's a very small ecosystem at the moment, and two, I don't have. I would need at least 1,000 of them to do weight checks for maximum FPS. So that's it. Just for the moment, we're saying no on the new blasters because they can only use the new darts. Sorry if that is an inconvenience, but it's just a ecosystem safety point of view. And anything else goes to check the questions tab. That's the mods tab. Cool. Anything else, Charlie? Stab safe is allowed. We will just be very aware that it's going to be tight corridors and small, very close up fighting and whatnot. So just be very aware of your blows and whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely that. And I think what we'll probably do is, we'll do the standard weapons check at the beginning of the event anyway, and we'll probably do the common or garden, stick a ribbon on the stab safe to show that it's that it's passed. Just with that, yeah. The two-handed weapons are absolutely fine. You will probably find yourself at a disadvantage if you're using two-handers in the majority of situations. So I don't want people to have a rubbish game because they've made choices thinking that there's going to be a lot of big open fighting. There isn't. The majority of this event is likely to be based around sneaking unless you start making some really unfortunate choices, in which case you're going to be writing new characters anyway. So make your choices about what you're bringing on the understanding that two-handers are likely to be less of an advantage than they'd be anywhere else. That they might actively get in the way. You might find yourself reaching for your daggers anyway. Cool. So yeah, just to note that we haven't in this particular update addressed all of the feedback, but that isn't to say that we don't think they were good ideas or that we don't think they were relevant. We really appreciated all of the feedback that everyone gave, and we'll be sending out feedback forms again after this event because it's that relevant. What we wanted to do was we wanted to make the most impactful changes, make sure that they work, make sure that we've not gone too far or too little, and then reevaluate. And there will be another rules update after the second event, because we realised that that there's probably going to be a piece around balancing again. So if your feedback hasn't been covered in this update, it's not because we didn't think it was worthwhile. we just wanted to be really tight on what we were achieving. So please continue to send it in, even if it didn't get actioned. And again, feel free to send in the same feedback if it wasn't actioned. It may well still be a thing that we want to do in the future. Just that maybe it affected fewer people. But, we want for everyone to have the best game possible. Any more for any more? No? Cool. Well, in which case, have a lovely weekend. I might see some folks at Steamweave. If you're going, have a fantastic time. I'll be popping in on the Saturday, hopefully. If you're going to Glastonbury, have a wonderful time. If you're doing anything else, have the best time. And we'll see you on site from 12 on Friday the 5th.
Cool. Thank you very much.
See you later.
Charlie, can I borrow you before you disappear?
Yes, who was that?
Me, Barney. I know saying me really helps there. Who is it? Me. Oh, I'm fucking...
Do you want to
Yes,
drop down
mate.
to crew?
I'll drop onto the crew channel.
Yeah, I'll drop down.
Cheers, mate.